there are different audiences that want different things. And so you don't necessarily have to have magic with rules and costs. If your story requires it, then it does. And if you're writing for an audience that doesn't care, well then you don't care.
Well, and there's also the Clark's law that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So think of Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court. Or think of if you were transported back into some barbaric time and you had your iPhone with you. To the people in that world, that is basically an infinite magical resource. It could, yes, Josh's little flashlight would burn his battery down in.
You better have a solar charger.
However, if you're the barbarian king who Josh is flashing the flashlight at, he doesn't know that the battery's going to run out in an hour. And unless Josh is there for longer than an hour, it doesn't matter.
Because still put the spears through me.
I was going to say, bash his head in that fast. So, and then in an hour it would die, and it's because the magic of the wizard went away or something. So, I mean, there may be answers that aren't always apparent, and there may be stories that the characters, it's about characters that don't really need to know these particular rules. But you, the writer, need to know the particular rules. I've seen many, I call them the fantasies, where the wizard has the spell of convenience. Because whatever, well, I think Gandalf does that plenty in The Lord of the Rings. So whatever he needs to do, oh, okay, I can summon the white horses that ride down the river to sweep away the orcs when they're right past the Council of Elrond. Okay, I don't know how he does that, but it's cool.
That would be a great spell to have in a role-playing game, right? Yeah. Whatever you need right now. I cast whatever I need right now. Done. It's a level 2. Okay, so we're halfway through, so I would love to open this up to questions. I know we have a lot of hands that were up. There, this right here. Okay, so his question, when you're first starting in the world building, how do you know where the origins of all your stuff are? The origins of your magic, the origins of your whatever?
I mean,
To know that.
yeah, I mean, that is often left up to you. Where do you want them to come from? What origins are going to serve the story that you are wanting to tell? Usually what I will do is I will sketch out a very, very askew chronological history of the world, of the reality that we're in. And it will get very specific right around the storyline that I want to tell, and then get broader and broader and broader as I go back until it's like, big cataclysm happened here, something nasty, big wizard war, I don't know. I have no idea what happened back then. But something about that fed into the storyline now, but all I need to know is some big nasty thing happened back then. If I go tell a story back then I need to know the details. But all I need to know is something bad happened. Now we're in this, magical wasteland for some reason, and nasty things are happening again. Which, of course, if you're telling a good story, lots of nasty things are happening because you're putting your characters through hell. So yeah, that's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah, just to follow up on this, think about some of your favorite properties, your favorite books, your favorite movies, TV shows. A lot of the time, you have no idea what the origins of anything are. And a lot of the time the creators don't either, or they will decide them later. When Star Trek started, we didn't know where Starfleet came from. We didn't know where a lot of this came from. And they were writing an episodic thing, so they were able to fill in those details as they needed them. But in order to start telling that story, they didn't need to know. Now, one thing Roddenberry did know is that he wanted to have the engine room be an important part of the ship. And so he made sure to write that into the first episode. He set a scene in the engine room specifically so that they would build a set for it, specifically so that he could use it later when he needed it. So looking forward and planning, okay, I know I'm eventually going to need to know X, Y, or Z, so I can work on that now. But for the most part, you can just kind of, you know what you need to know and where does it come from. If it doesn't matter the story, then it doesn't matter.
But sometimes it gets away from you. Because I think of the original Star Wars movie. When Obi-Wan Kenobi, or when Luke there, he says, my father fought in the Clone Wars, didn't he? I am utterly convinced that George Lucas did not have the full series of the Clone Wars and everything. I think you just threw it in because it sounded cool, and it was just going to be some detail. But then because it became so popular, then we got to start asking these questions, and what is the Clone Wars, and build all that up. And so be careful. Like if you're Sherlock, if you're Arthur Conan Doyle, and you throw in the adventure of the giant rat of Sumatra, you know that somebody's going to actually have to write it at some point.
All right, question over here.
So, in world building, as you're putting characters in, how do you put limitations to your characters' like abilities? Example: if one character is a dragon and he needs to get somewhere, how do you make sure he doesn't fly and he actually has to walk?
Okay, so question is, as you're starting to cast your story, you have all these characters, how do you apply limits to them so that they cannot do everything too easy?
I break the dragon's wing real fast.
Put the dragon in a modern day place where they have, anti-aircraft missiles and that sort of thing.
One thing that I like to do, and you actually see this a lot with, for example, Stephen King, is you can make your characters as powerful as you want, as long as their area of expertise is not the area that will be required to solve the problem in the story. So something like, and now it's slipping my mind, but he's got the book where there's all the kids that are being hunted by the monsters. They're like on a vacation in the woods, and it's a cabin in the woods story. Yes, it's Dreamcatcher. And the characters are psychic. Why are they psychic? Well, being psychic is not going to help them necessarily, because they're being eaten by monsters. But they can go ahead and be psychic, You can have your character be a violin virtuoso. You can have your character be a trained, Navy SEAL. But if that trained Navy SEAL is trying to solve a problem that won't be solved by punching it or shooting it, then it won't necessarily help them. And so that's a great way of making your characters competent and awesome while still limiting their capacity to solve the problem you're requiring them to solve.